Welcome back, everybody, to the Philadelphia Eagles franchise here on Madden 22. Today we have our draft preview for the upcoming 2023 NFL Draft, which will be in the next episode. We are going to deep dive really the entire draft class in a more summarized version. I have done prospect profiles throughout the season, and I will leave cards at the top right of the screen if you would like to rewatch those. We will also be doing mock drafts and whatnot and trying to figure out what the first round is going to look like, what the strategy for the Eagles will be going into this year's draft, because the Eagles are certainly in an interesting position. Obviously coming off an 8-9 season, losing the final 5 games of the year. And this is a very pivotal offseason because this team needs to make substantial improvements. Otherwise, jobs in the front office are going to be lost. We went after some big fish in the offseason like Mecole Hardman and J.J. Watt and ended up striking out. And because of that, the team actually doesn't look that much different at the moment. The offense is pretty much the same, minus the addition of quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, defense, there are some pretty big changes. Bobby Wagner, now in at middle linebacker, the big signing, and no more Darius Slay. He was traded to the Minnesota Vikings along with our third-round pick for Minnesota's first-round selection at 28th overall in the draft. Darius Slay has been a ball hawk, 14 interceptions combined through the first 2 seasons of this series, but he wasn't great in coverage, and Minnesota needed a corner pretty badly. And now we have more flexibility at the top of the draft with 2 first-round picks, which definitely makes things interesting at 14th and 28th overall. So before we dive back into the draft class, I do want to go over our 3 focus players, which is part of the new scouting update in Madden this year, so we can choose 3 players to give private workouts to in the facility. And the strategy here was, who could I see us picking at the top? Because I want to nail our first round pick. So the first player I chose was Jabari Achebe, a defensive end. I chose Lubertz Roy, a linebacker. Both of them are possible top 10 picks, but if one of them falls, I would really like to get them. So I figured, why not? And then I also did quarterback Anthony Cortez III. I don't want to rule out the idea of moving up towards the top of the draft and getting him, especially with quarterback still being a major question mark and with him being noticeably better as a QB prospect than everybody else in this draft class. So those are the 3 players I decided to pick, and they will get significant boosts to their scouting percentages. All former Westlake Hornets, which, I don't know, there's probably some Westlake bias there. But now let's go position by position, talking about some of the notable players in this draft class. And we're going to start off with quarterback. The prospect profile for quarterbacks was uploaded over a month ago, so this is a pretty good refresher for everybody who may forget some of these names. And obviously, at the top of the list, we have Anthony Cortez III out of Westlake, who is an awesome QB prospect. Now, he is going nowhere near the 14th pick. He is going to go way earlier than that, probably in the top 2 or 3 picks. So if Philadelphia wants him, they're going to have to move up. But adding that first-round pick from the Vikings definitely gives them ammo. Cortez is a very unique talent. He's a little bit small at only 6 foot, but he has a great arm. Obviously, he's very mobile, and he's quite accurate as well. I think minus his smaller frame, there aren't many glaring weaknesses. He tested very well at the Combine and Pro Day, including a 4.39 40 at the Pro Day, which is really fast. His athletic traits are off the chart, and he is the only player in the entire draft class who we have 100% scouted, which is a pretty big deal. I definitely am considering the idea of moving up to get him. The problem is it's going to cost a lot. So if we don't want Cortez but still want to look at QB early, there are some options, including Jill Kilpatrick out of North Carolina State. Kilpatrick originally played at Westlake but ended up transferring after some academic issues. Now, Kilpatrick is kind of the opposite of Anthony Cortez III. He's a little bit older at 23 years old, and he doesn't have the arm strength that Cortez has, which is why he's projected to go lower. Kilpatrick is more of a field general in the sense that he's a smart quarterback. He doesn't make many bad decisions. He is pretty mobile, and he has great accuracy. The way I view it is if Anthony Cortez III is Trevor Lawrence, Joe Kilpatrick is Mac Jones. Now, I think the talent disparity between these 2 players isn't that much, but I think Cortez just has more upside, and Kilpatrick is probably the safer play early on. So he could be a player the Eagles look at. He'll probably go around the pick 14 range. Another solid option is Ricky Radzavinsky out of Illinois. He's a tall 6'3", big-arm quarterback. I would say he would go to the Broncos because he's a John Elway type of player, but they did just trade for Aaron Rodgers in the last episode, so that probably wouldn't make sense. I don't think Radzavinski is a great fit for us because I like quarterbacks who are at least a little bit mobile. I don't need a Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray type of athlete in there, but as long as you can move in the pocket like a Joe Burrow, then you're fine. Radzavinski doesn't even have Joe Burrow type of mobility. He's kind of a statue in the pocket, and while some of the throws he makes are absolutely ridiculously impressive, which is why I think he's going to go in the first round, his athleticism and mobility is certainly a question. But I don't think we're questioning the athleticism and mobility of USF's Malik Black, whose stock has definitely improved throughout the season and is somebody I could see going in the first round. And if the Eagles don't get a quarterback with their first pick, then I could really see grabbing him with the draft pick that they just acquired from the Minnesota Vikings. Black is a dynamic athlete. He's super mobile. His arm talent is a little bit inconsistent. He doesn't really have the deep ball, which is kind of the deal breaker for me. I like somebody who can stretch the field and lead a vertical offense, especially with us having a couple deep threats in Devontae Smith and Tykeem Keon. So I don't know if Black is the best fit, but if we want to take a gamble on a kid who has a chance to be a really intriguing football player, then maybe we do look his way with our late first round pick or maybe even our second round pick if he does fall. After that top four, the quarterback I like the most down the board is UCLA's CeCe Vaughn, who to me is pretty much the Walmart version of Anthony Cortez III. Vaughn also originally committed to play at Westlake, but lost the QB battle to Anthony Cortez III, and I think Cortez has proven throughout his college career that he is the better QB prospect, but CeCe Vaughn is very similar. He's also a little bit smaller, only standing at around 6 foot. His arm strength is not as strong as Cortez's, but he does have a good arm. He has great mobility. I think the big difference between Vaughn and Cortez is the accuracy. CeCe Vaughn is a lot more inconsistent as a passer, which is why he's probably going to go in the 3rd or 4th round. But he could absolutely be worth a gamble for a team like Philadelphia, who definitely has questions at the quarterback position. And picking CeCe Vaughn, to me, would be very similar to the Koko Nwosu pick in our Jaguars franchise last year. So it's a very talented quarterback class, and if we really, really want to get a replacement for Jalen Hurts, we do have the opportunity to do so. I think running back is a sneaky need for us. We do have Rosemont St. Clair, who had a great rookie year, but I don't think he's an every down back. I think we need somebody else long-term in this backfield, and it probably won't be Osiris Jefferson because I fully expect him to go number 1 overall. Now, you don't normally see running backs going number 1 overall, especially to a team like Detroit, who has the first overall pick, who has a lot of holes, not including the running back position. But Osiris Jefferson is that good. He is the perfect prospect at running back. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, he's agile. He might be the best NFL prospect, regardless of position, in the last 10 to 15 years. And I do not say that lightly. That is how good this young man is. He is going to be a star in the NFL. He's going to be a top 5 to 10 running back as a 20-year-old rookie. That's how good he is. So as we look a little bit lower on the board towards the non-robot running backs, Tazewell Hubbard is someone who I think could be really good. The Eagles are listed as a fit for him, but I think they're a fit for every running back in this draft class. And I think Tazewell Hubbard would be a really fun player with that second first-round pick. I think him and Rosemont St. Clair would complement each other really well. Hubbard is used to being in a running back by committee. He did it with Matt Miller for a while, who was the New York Jets' first-round pick last year. And I think Hubbard's impressiveness as an early down runner and his big playability would really go well with Rosemont St. Clair, who's more of a receiving back. Hubbard performed very well at the Combine, even better at the Westlake Pro Day, and he's somebody who I think could go higher than people expect, but if not, look out for the Eagles to maybe take a shot on him. And if not, Darnell Williams is a good replacement. So Williams is listed from Auburn, but he has never played a game for Auburn. He was hurt this year and last year, and really through the rest of his college career. He played at the University of Maryland, but he transferred in order to play against SEC competition. Obviously, he didn't play this year, but nonetheless, he is a really, really good running back, and I think he's super well-rounded, which is why I think teams are really going to like him. You need running backs who can do a little bit of everything in today's NFL, and Darnell Williams brings exactly that to the table. I don't know if the Eagles would use a first-round pick on him, but if Tazewell Hubbard is off the board and they really are intrigued in picking a running back with that second first-round pick, but Darnell Williams, who's a big guy, 6'1", 225, it could make sense. As we go down the board, this is a deep running back class. There's a lot of power backs here. Foyet Akibola, there's Gary Jones, Quantrez Davis. And then you have your more agile, change of pace, receiving backs. So there's a little bit of everything at the running back position in this draft class, and this is definitely one of the more talented positions. I think this is a weaker wide receiver class than what we've had the past few years, but Isaiah Thomas, the third at the top, is a beast. Now, unfortunately, I don't think the Eagles are going to get him because they've used first-round picks in each of the past 3 drafts on wide receivers. But if wide receiver was in need, I think they would really try to get this kid. He's 6'3", over 220 pounds, so he's a big guy. But he's also a great route runner, great hands. And the best part about his game is what he can do with the ball in his hands. After the catch, he is incredible. This kid is a playmaker, and he doesn't have any major weaknesses. So because of that, I think he is the full product of the wide receiver position and somebody who very well could go in the top 5. And again, if the Eagles were at the top of the draft and needed a receiver, it'd probably look his way. Now, even though I think it is a weaker receiving class, that's not to say there aren't other players who could go in the first round. Westefo Uwosu, Quandre Adams, King Carver, and others I think could be first-rounders. There is quite a bit of depth here. Damian Purcell, Damian Rose, Jaylen Brown, and other receivers. So overall, I guess it's a good year for the Eagles not to really need receiver, but there is definitely talent there. It's a solid tight end class as well. Santiago Cunningham leads the way. You got Richie Radusky, CJ Husmanzada, Dozier Baxby, and the most intriguing tight end here is Tommy Taco out of Westlake. He was a high recruited running back, moved over to tight end. So although this class is a little bit weaker when it comes to pass catchers, it's not weak at the offensive line. And that starts with offensive tackle Enekba Enegwike from Florida. This kid is an unbelievable athlete, somebody who is the definition of a franchise left tackle, and somebody who I think the Lions will consider with that #1 overall pick. Enegwike tore up the combine, he tore up the pro day, and any doubts that he was not the top offensive lineman in this class were put to bed. And that says something because, as I said a minute ago, this O-line class is so good. And I think Enegwike has a legitimate Hall of Fame ceiling, and I don't say that lightly. So behind him, the next best tackle is Westlake's Antonio Osborne. And I think most years he would be the #1 tackle, maybe even the #1 offensive lineman off the board. But because Enegwike is not human, Osborne is bumped down. But that's not to take anything away from this kid because he's really talented. And I think he's a legitimate option for the Eagles' first pick if they don't move up or down. I think Osborne's range is right around the middle of the first round. And I think he'd be a home run pick for the Eagles value-wise. Now, Philadelphia has 5 good starting offensive linemen. But with Jason Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, and Lane Johnson, who's a tackle, all being over 33 years old, Philadelphia has to look for life after those guys. And even though last year's second-round pick, left tackle Tyler Palumbo, appears to be pretty good, they're going to need more than that. And then as we go down the board, it's a very deep tackle class with guys like Colt McLaughlin, Josh Brunswick, and others. Again, this is one of the best position groups in this draft class. As we move over to guard, in my opinion, the best guard prospect in this draft class is Freddie Cheeseburger out of Duke, who's a very unique story. He is 6'9", he wears number 69, so double nice. He weighs 400 pounds. Yeah, he's a big human, and he, in fact, does eat a lot of cheeseburgers. He was originally born Freddie Burger, but legally changed his last name to Cheeseburger because, well, as I said, he eats a lot of them. He is a bully at guard. He will push you around, and I think he's going to be a really fun player in the NFL. Not as deep at guard, but there are some solid day 2 players. Jassy and Lou Dort out of Rice, I think could be pretty solid. Maybe the Eagles take a shot on him in like the 4th round. It's a good center class. I like all 4 of these guys. Thomas Timberlake, Fletcher Luce, Brandon Daniels, and Teo Tanugatoa. All of them I think are going to outperform their draft slots. At right guard, Otto Keshbijan out of Purdue. This is another unique story. We don't have highlights for him because he didn't play this year. He was not eligible to play. So the reason why is before he went to Purdue, he lived in Serbia. He had to pass a citizenship test to move to the States, which he did. But a couple of years later, before his senior season, they recognized that he cheated on that test. So he had to go back to Serbia during the beginning of the college football season. So he didn't play this year. He eventually did pass his citizenship test and now is legally allowed to move over to the United States and play in the NFL. So a very unique story, but he hasn't played in a year, and that poses a lot of questions. And then as we move to right tackle, Bentley McVaughn out of Illinois is a monster. Part of the reason why a lot of people were skeptical on the idea of Enegwike being the top tackle off the board was because Bentley McVaughn is almost as good. His athleticism matches right up. He is a behemoth of a human being, 6'8", nearly 360 pounds, but he moves so fluidly, and men of his size are not supposed to move as well as he does. He runs his 40 in right around 5 seconds. He jumps high, obviously, great bench press. So his athleticism is off the charts, and his production is quite good. The question with him is, can he be a blindside tackle? He was playing on the right side throughout his Illinois career, so that is in question a little bit, but the talent is not, and he's going to be a top 10 pick regardless of where he plays on the offensive line. So overall, stacked offensive line group, great for the Eagles because they do need to get younger there. As we move to defense, it's a good defensive line group, and that starts with Jabari Achebe, one of the 3 players Westlake put their focus scouting into. I don't think Jabari Achebe will fall to 14, but if he does, I think the Eagles will run that card up to the commissioner. Achebe was a 5-star recruit, one of the top players in his high school class out of IMG Academy, and he was a superstar right when he stepped on campus. Started as a true freshman, and he was great. After his freshman and sophomore season, production actually went down a little bit, which is a little bit concerning. And after his sophomore season, he looked like the consensus #1 pick, no questions asked. Now, he's still going to be probably a top 10 pick with his athleticism and his great pass rushing ability, but he does have some work to do, and I will say he did regress throughout his college career, so he does have some questions to answer. Zane Beavers out of UCLA, more of a run stopper. I do think he'll be a first-round pick. I really like Alexander Griffith out of Vanderbilt. He's one of the older players in the class at 24 years old, but one of the more NFL-ready players in the draft class as well. Westlake's other starting defensive end, alongside Achebe, is also projected to be a first-round pick, and that is Jacob Williams. Williams' career arc is pretty much the complete opposite to Jabari Achebe. Williams was a walk-on at Westlake, so actually he went to JUCO for a year coming out of high school, and then after a great season in JUCO, he walked on to Westlake, he redshirted, and he didn't start for a while, but he earned playing time, and eventually he outperformed Jabari Achebe this past season. Williams does not have the athleticism or the upside that Jabari Achebe has, but somebody with his type of work ethic and his type of improvement warrants a first-round selection, and I think he's a guy the Eagles will definitely look at that pick 14. Julian Roberson out of Ole Miss is pretty talented. Apeyu Tuiasosopo, Slakvo Savic, and others. Really good right-end class. A lot of guys here have a lot of upside. And then as we go to the defensive tackle position, KK Mosley-Smith, Olumunumi Omosania are both worthy first-round picks, but Benny Wilkins out of Arkansas, in my opinion, is the most intriguing defensive tackle. He is 6'11", 400 pounds, and he just pushes these grown men out of the way. Look how big he is compared to everybody else. That's just not fair. These are giant offensive linemen, and he makes them look small. So the question with Benny Wilkins is, can he rely on strength and power alone in the NFL? Because those offensive linemen are bigger and stronger and better than the one he's had to play against in college. But at his size, you'd have to think that he does have the strength and the ability to just dominate offensive linemen. The Eagles need defensive tackle quite a bit, and he would be quite the fun selection. It's a pretty good defensive tackle class at the top. I don't think it's an overly deep group, but I think it's a very top-heavy defensive tackle class, and overall, the Eagles do need one. Maybe they look at Benny Wilkins. At linebacker, the top 2 left outside ones are Thomas Hagen and Josiah Bingo, who are completely opposite players. We'll talk about Hagen real quick, who really developed nicely at Westlake. He's a very smart player. He has a knack for the football, and he's well-rounded. Good as a run stopper, good in coverage, decent enough pass rusher, and I think his versatility and his football IQ really makes him an intriguing player. The Eagles don't really need linebacker, but he's somebody who's going to go right in that late first-round range, and maybe they will want to take a look at him. Him and Winston Johnson have played with each other in college, and they both produced at a high level, so maybe pairing them up again would be pretty fun. Whereas Josiah Bingo from Oklahoma State, he's super athletic, but he is raw. Talented pass rusher, but has some work to do. As we move over to middle linebacker, there's another Westlake Hornet at the top in Lou Roy, who is the other player we decided to put our focus scouting into. Lou Roy is one of my favorite Westlake Hornet players of all time. He flies around the football field and is a big play waiting to happen. As a pass rusher, he knows how to just run through offensive linemen and sack the quarterback. In the run game, he can lay the boom on ball carriers, and in coverage, he makes highlight interceptions. He's had multiple one-handed picks in his college career. He is just a fun player, and although the Eagles don't really need linebacker that much, he would be awesome to have on this team. I don't think he's going to be available at 14. I think if the Eagles want him, they would have to move up, but they're definitely going to consider it. And, man, if we have Lou Roy on this team, that would be so much fun. I don't know if we're going to get him, but I would really enjoy it. There's some talent here. I really like Ollie Star Sinclair out of Georgia. He's a little bit small, but does have good upside. And then a right outside linebacker, Jay Gold Jr., really good pass rusher. Gordon Waters-Key, great in coverage. But Osvaldo Sapp from South Carolina is the intriguing one to me. He's kind of like the other outside linebacker we talked about, Josiah's Bingo, in the way that he's super athletic, but he's super raw. I think somebody's going to really like this kid and want to take a shot on him because the upside is absolutely there. He's kind of like Odafe Owe, who came out of Penn State a few years ago, had all the athletic tools, but wasn't developed. And so far, Owe has turned into a pretty good pro up to this point. So I think a team may see that in Osvaldo Sapp, and if they can develop him, he could be real good. As we move to the secondary, this class is loaded in the defensive back department. I think the secondary is the strongest position group in this draft class, as we start with cornerback Jalen Duggs Beckham, who's another kid who could be a contender for the #1 pick. When we did our cornerback prospect profile, I said on record, given the choice between Nehemiah Richardson, who we drafted 3rd overall last year and had a great rookie season, or Jalen Duggs Beckham, I would choose Jalen Duggs Beckham. I think he's that good. And obviously, I'm very high on Nehemiah Richardson. We picked him 3rd overall for a reason. I think Duggs Beckham is slightly more athletic than Nehemiah Richardson. I think Richardson is slightly more refined in coverage than Duggs Beckham. But the big difference between the two is ball skills. Jalen Duggs Beckham tracks the ball unbelievably well. He has great hands. And Nehemiah Richardson is not bad when it comes to ball skills. He picked off 5 passes this year. That's a lot. But I think Jalen Duggs Beckham is even better when it comes to tracking the football. He's Trayvon Diggs when it comes to interceptions, but Jalen Ramsey in coverage. And that is big words, I know, but I genuinely mean it. I think he's that good of a prospect. And I think most years, Khalil Onabanjo from Westlake would be CB1. But with Jalen Duggs Beckham in the class, that's not the case. I think Onabanjo's ball skills are right up to par with Jalen Duggs Beckham. And as I said, I think Duggs Beckham has some of the best ball skills of any cornerback prospect in years. So it's impressive that Onabanjo is right on that level. He's not as consistent in coverage. He's pretty small, 5'11", 177. But he is actually more athletic. One of the fastest corners in this class, ran a 4.3 340 at the combine, 4.32 at his pro day. He tested extremely well athletically, which was to be expected. And although he's a little bit more inconsistent and obviously smaller than Jalen Duggs Beckham, I think the upside is right there. And of course, this is a deep cornerback class too. Artez Rabb out of Notre Dame, Kenny Akunu, Osmond Love. This is a loaded cornerback class. But my favorite non-first round corner is Jasper Freeman from Cincinnati. You don't find players with his type of IQ added on with his athleticism and ball skills. He's a kid who I think could be a steal in the 3rd or 4th round. And Cincinnati's other corner, Osmond Love, has gotten all the attention and all the press, and deservedly so. Osmond Love is a great prospect. But Jasper Freeman, I think, is as good as Osmond Love, who's probably going to be a first-round pick. Freeman has unbelievable football IQ. He has really solid ball skills, and he has decent athleticism. He's not like Jalen Duggs Beckham or Khalil Onabanjo when it comes to athleticism, but he's respectable. He is good agility, good speed. He tested very well in the jumping drills, and I think he's someone who the Eagles really may want to look at in the 3rd or 4th round. And then as we go in day 3, again, very deep group. There's so much talent at the cornerback position this year, and there's going to be so many players who turn out to be beasts. The free safety class is not top-heavy, but it's deep. Justin Scott, Jason Wilson, Devontae Walker, Fred Perry, Porter Block, Tommy Bubbles, and others. A lot of really good players in there, but as we look at strong safety, it's top-heavy and it's deep. And that starts with Fabian Suggs, who's probably the best safety prospect to enter the draft since another former LSU defensive back in Jamal Adams. The Eagles are listed as a fit here, but I do think the Eagles are pretty set at safety. But if they did somehow get Fabian Suggs, which I don't think is going to happen, but if they did, that'd be an awfully fun pickup. Suggs is great in coverage. He has great ball skills. So in that case, he's not like Jamal Adams. But he does have the versatility to play as a box linebacker. He can make plays in a run game. He's active as a pass rusher. And I think his positional flexibility is why he is projected to go so high. You rarely find safeties who go in the top 5 because the positional value is lower. But Suggs is that good to where he absolutely deserves to be a top 5 pick. And as I said, it's a really talented group here. Terrence Flash is going to go in the top half of the first round. Dustin Maxwell, very versatile player. And then day 2, Joko Nwosu out of Westlake. I really, really like him. And then here are the special teams. We are probably not going to pick a kicker or a punter because we're set at those spots, but there is definitely talent there. So now let's talk mock draft. We will go over 3 mock drafts from this offseason. And at the top of the draft, we have a very fascinating storyline. The Detroit Lions hold the first and second picks in this year's draft thanks to the Matthew Stafford trade. I don't think the Lions are going to keep both of those picks. I imagine one of them is going to be moved. The Lions are in a very interesting spot because their roster is flat out not good. I mean, it is rough. They probably the worst team on paper in the NFL, and I think they need a lot of picks in order to add some talent because, as you'll see right here, there isn't much. Only 3 players above 82 overall, not accounting for morale, however. But they don't really need a quarterback. They drafted Jakari Johnson in the second round, who had an okay rookie year. I think they want to build around him, so I don't think they would be interested in Anthony Cortez III. So what I think happens is they choose the best player in the draft at 1, probably Osiris Jefferson. I know he's a running back, but he's just that good. And then I think a QB-needy team, maybe Philadelphia, moves up to the second overall pick, gets Anthony Cortez III, so the Lions get a king's ransom, and they get the best player in the draft. Scrolling forward, they have the Giants getting Lou Burts-Roy. That's kind of scary. Denver does not pick at 9. That pick belongs to the Packers with the Aaron Rodgers trade, keep in mind. And then they have us at 14, getting Olunumi Omosanya, the defensive tackle from Colorado. Good player, fills a need, but I probably wouldn't pick him that high. And it's kind of sad with Jabari Ajabe going 1 pick ahead of us. They have Joe Kilpatrick, the quarterback out of NC State, going to the Washington football team. I think that pick would make a lot of sense. They do need a QB. The Browns do not own the 26th pick either. That belongs to Seattle with the Russell Wilson deal. Not that Tazewell Hubbard really makes sense for the Browns because they have Nick Chubb. And keep in mind, we have that 28th pick, and I do think Thomas Hagen would be a solid selection there. Looking at the second mock draft, I think this one was made early in free agency. They have the Lions picking Jalen Beckham at 2, and the Jets getting Anthony Cortez. Zach Wilson has been okay through 2 years, but with Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas getting fired in the offseason, maybe they look to move on. And the new regime, led by head coach Byron Leftwich, looks to get a new quarterback. They have our division rival Giants getting Otto Kejbajan, the guard from Purdue. The Broncos, again, don't have that pick. That belongs to the Packers, but Isaiah Thomas in Green Bay would be really terrifying. And again, they have us getting Omosanya at 14. Joe Kilpatrick still goes to Washington. 26 belongs to Seattle. And they have Tazewell Hubbard with that second Minnesota pick. Again, that wouldn't really make sense for the Vikings, but that's not their pick. That's ours. I think Tazewell Hubbard would be a really fun pick late in the first round. And if he's there, which I kind of don't think he will, but if he is, I'm definitely going to consider that. And then as we go to the third and final mock draft, this was made after free agency, after the combine, but still does not take any of the trades into account. So the top of the draft remains fairly the same, but the big twist here is Joe Kilpatrick going to the Giants at 7. So it looks like Joe Kilpatrick is probably going to be in our division, which is really fun. From there is a change with our pick. They is getting Khalil Onobanjo. Value-wise, I think Onobanjo at 14 is great value. I don't know if I want to use another first-rounder on a corner since we just got Nehemiah Richardson last year, and C.J. Thomas was practically a first-rounder a year ago. But if Onobanjo is there at 14, I would probably consider it. And then from there, with the Minnesota pick, again, it's Tazewell Hubbard. So Khalil Onobanjo and Tazewell Hubbard would be 2 great value picks in the first round, even if they're not the biggest needs, although again, I would like to add a running back, but even if they're not like gigantic needs, those would still be pretty fun picks. But we all know Madden is not the smartest, so because of that, I made my own mock draft. I made a first-round mock draft, and then I made a 7-round mock draft with just our picks. I'm not going to do a 7-round mock draft from a whole league. I'm not that crazy. So, at the first pick, Osiris Jefferson, I really do think he's going to go number 1, even though they have DeAndre Swift. He is the best player in the class. I have them getting Anthony Cortez the third at second. Again, I don't think the Lions keep this pick. I think a QB-needy team, maybe the Giants, maybe Carolina, maybe somebody like that moves up and grabs him. I think the Lions, if they stay at 2, could consider him. I mean, it's not like Jakari Johnson is some star, but I do think they like him. I do think they want to keep him. The big surprise here would be Fabian Suggs at 3 to the Jets. I think that might be a little bit early, but who knows? Jalen Duggs Beckham at 4, and Nwigwe at 5, Thomas at 6, McVaughn at 7, Achebe at 8. All of those picks kind of make sense. For the Eagles' sake, I hope Achebe doesn't go 8, because I think he would be a great pick for them. But again, I would be a little bit surprised if he did fall to that 14th pick. But if he does, I'm just going to say it right now, the Eagles are going to run that pick up to the commissioner because it would be a no-brainer. As we move forward now, again, the Packers have the 9th pick from the Aaron Rodgers trade, and they pick Lou Burt's-Roy. As somebody who strongly dislikes the Packers in real life, if this happens, I'm going to cry at the idea of seeing Lou Burt's-Roy in a Packers jersey. That would make me really sad. Kej Bijan, Ono Banjo, Mosley Smith, and Osborne are the next few picks. So I think this board would play out not good for us, because I think the 3 players who make the most sense with our pick, which would be Achebe, Roy, and Osborne, are all off the board. So instead, we'll go with a different Westlake player here in Jacob Williams, the defensive end. I think defensive line is a need for us. I think Williams does have the versatility to play inside and out. I think that could work. Bengals at 15 get Artez Rab from Notre Dame. Even though he is projected higher than Ono Banjo, I do think Ono Banjo will go before him, and I do think Ono Banjo is better. And then at 16, Terrence Flash to the Bucks. If they want to rebuild, they could pick quarterback there. Joe Kilpatrick does make sense, but instead I have them going 17 to the Washington football team. I think this pick makes too much sense. Washington does have a good roster, even though they did let Terry McLaurin walk in the offseason for whatever odd reason. But they don't have a lot of talent at quarterback, and even though Taylor Heineke did play really well against the Eagles this year, I think they would rather Joe Kilpatrick to step in there and start right away. Okunu, Gold, Hall are the next 3 picks. Fun fact about BJ Hall, his name is actually BJ, not B, but BJ is inappropriate according to Madden, which I guess kind of makes sense. Cheeseburger, 21 of the Raiders. Ricky Radzavinsky, cornerback, Illinois to the Falcons. Matt Ryan is kind of old, so maybe they want his replacement. Josiah's Bingo to the Ravens, a very Ravens-like pick. They know how to develop raw edge rushers. And Benny Wilkins to the Seattle Seahawks. Zane Beavers to Arizona, Osvaldo Sapp to Seattle. So Seattle's kind of taken a big swing here with their 2 picks, getting 2 very high-ceiling players with Benny Wilkins and Osvaldo Sapp. Thomas Hagen, 27 to the Steelers. And then at 28, I kind of decided to have fun. I figured it's a silly mock draft, so why not go a little bit crazy? Quarterback Malik Black out of UCF. I don't think we would really consider him with that 28th pick, but I figured why not just toss around the idea, because I do think it could be interesting. Julian Roberson to Green Bay, Westafalu Uwosu to Illinois, or out of Illinois to New England, just the second receiver off the board. Maxwell to Dallas, and then Lano Meander to the Chiefs. They do need to replace some of the speed that they lost with Tyreek Hill signing with the Dolphins in the offseason. And even if he's not the best receiver on the board, he's probably the best one who is fast. So then I did a 7-round mock draft for us, and I decided to switch around the first-round picks just to make things different. And the idea of this draft is that the Eagles don't pick a quarterback and stick with the QB room of Jalen Hurts, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Maddox Gillard. So the first-round picks are Antonio Osborne and Tazewell Hubbard. I think they'd both be home runs. Even if they're not the biggest needs, great value. Our second rounder, I have it being defensive tackle Kuyan Cletus. Haven't really talked about him a lot, but he's one of the more NFL-ready players in the class. He is already 24, though. 110, Ollie Star Sinclair. I like him a lot. Smaller linebacker, but he's very versatile, very athletic. Another guy I like in day 3 is Teo Tanagatoa. Raw center, but I think he could be the Jason Kelsey replacement. And then from there, we went for some depth players in Jabianha Dupree, an edge rusher from Auburn. Taylor Tyler, the speedy receiver out of Westlake. And defensive back Kola Rosensense from UMass. So there you go. A very jam-packed episode. We went through the entire draft class. We looked at Madden's mock drafts. We did our own mock drafts. A very busy video today, so I really hope you guys enjoyed it. This episode took a lot of work, but this was a very fun one to do. And, of course, we got the big draft in the next episode. We have 2 first-round picks, a lot of flexibility, and a big opportunity to move up with hey, maybe the Lions at 2. Maybe we go ahead and make our move for a quarterback and Anthony Cortez III. Maybe we let the board play to us and get an elite defensive prospect. We have a lot of options in this year's draft class, and I think how we went through free agency really gives us flexibility because there isn't like 1 or 2 positions that we really need. It's a well-rounded roster that could use some upgrades in certain areas, but I think we're in a good opportunity to really just try to get a lot of good players in this draft class, and we'll see what it looks like. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe. Next episode will be the NFL Draft. I will be premiering that, and I will announce a time for the premiere likely within the next couple days. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Peace out.